Next stop, Chicago Junction.
Yes, it's Chicago Junction, being the radio program that is all about everything that is model railroading and real. Now here's our boss, the head of the Windy City Hometown Radio Network, as well as being the chief electrical engineer, Mr. John DeVita.
Well, thank you, Bri. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another broadcast of Chicago Junction from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network and Jack FM 89.7 WRHS FM Norwich on Monday, October the 19th, the year of our Lord, 2015. Today, the panel will be talking about railroad and model railroads. And now, to start today's broadcast, here's our announcer, Mr. Brian.
Oh, thank you there, John. Now here with our panel of experts in all variety of things is the engineer to guide us, Mr. Jack Ryan.
Good evening. Hello. Oh, such a build-up. I don't know if I can live up to that. Anyway, we have a couple of people missing tonight. Dave DeRushka is under the weather with a throat infection of some sort, and Tom McKenna has to work somewhere else. So we're confident with the men we have here that we got the brain power and the knowledge and the charm and wit to keep you entertained. And thanks for listening, by the way. Well, summer is definitely over, guys, right? Would you agree with that? Can we put that to a vote or what?
Yeah. I'm out there. I just see little changes now and then.
A little. Anyway, to my left is Doug Kanyuk.
Howdy.
And
represent the Railroad and Short Lines Club of Chicago, rscc.dhke.com. Rail historian, model railroader, and teach computers over at the local college.
And a member of the academic world, huh?
Yep.
So what do you teach?
Computers.
Are they easier to teach than people are?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Next up, Brian. You already been heard from. You were the announcer. And,
yes, I'm the announcer, retired Navy gunner's mate, but definite rail fan. I belong to the Chicago Area Garden Railway Society. I volunteer at the Botanic Railroad Garden in Chicago. In fact, I just finished a stint volunteering with the Lincoln Funeral Train.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that for sure.
Maybe.
Yeah, well, we'll get to it for sure.
And but I'm model railroad historian with the National Railway Historical Society, and just model train buff.
You are also had practical experience in railroad, correct?
Yes, I was a locomotive engineer and conductor for 15 years.
Very good. Next up, Ron Smolin.
Good afternoon. Good evening.
How are you?
Good morning. Okay. How are you?
And you're our musically inclined individual.
Yes, sir.
And you're orchestra leader.
Yes, I am.
And a band leader.
Yes.
And a model railroad guy.
And an accordion player.
Oh, really? Can you play Lady of Spain?
No.
With bellow shakes?
No.
No.
Oh, geez, I know one gal that wants to talk to you. No, she breaks out her accordion, too.
Yes.
We forgot, Kevin Berry is also not with us today. I mean, he's with us, but he's not with us tonight. So, I'm sorry, Kevin, I didn't mean to forget you. He was there Sunday, though.
Yes, he was.
By Sunday, I mean the 2015 Lincoln Funeral Train was in Hammond, Indiana, from the 8th to the 11th. And, of course, Brian, you were one of the volunteers with the crew.
Yes.
And you were at sea for a couple of months, right? With them, so to speak.
Yes, I was traveling with them. Mm-hmm. Went everywhere to North Carolina, Spencer, which if you haven't been there, now that I've seen pictures of it and knew about their wonderful roundhouse and turntable, but they have a nice layout of land, and they are not a railroad museum; they are a transportation museum. Okay. And they're building it up. They even got a Wright Flyer there in one of the old boiler house.
Now, what town is that again?
That's in Spencer, North Carolina.
Transportation Museum.
Yeah, it's in the near Charlotte.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually between Charlotte, Winston-Salem, and Greensboro.
Okay. And its transportation museum would take in.
Oh, besides trains, it does have planes. In fact, they got a nice DC-3 sitting in there.
Mm-hmm.
They have several automobiles. Like I said, the Wright Flyer. They have several, some nice equipment on display. And actually, one of the private car repairers and mechanics is opening up, has a shop open there with several private cars stored there.
But getting back to this Lincoln funeral train, if you didn't see this, it far exceeds any expectations one could have of the detail of the if you want to call it the painting, what do they call it now?
Well, you're talking about, getting it, the accuracy that went into the car is that sitting at about between 85 and 90%.
Mm-hmm.
They strive to get as much accurate as possible. There were very little photos of the inside of the train, so they had to depend upon newspaper articles. And they went through, and a lot of newspaper articles will agree on some things, but still not others. So when they found an article that will, three articles that actually agreed on one thing in there, that's what went in there.
Yeah.
And right now they're in the process. We've collected enough money to make one of the stoves, because it's supposed to have 2 stoves in it. And that's what the donation jar was for. We were going for the stoves because they were straight. They weren't potbelly.
Mm-hmm.
And the manufacturer of the stove still is in business. And they agreed to make the stoves for us for cost. Over $7,000 apiece.
Whoa. You're not making fun of anybody for being pot-bellied now here, are you?
No.
I won't take any. I resemble that. But anyway, once again,
Very well, too.
I was thinking the word detailing or something was, but it was so. Every little. Okay. One thing, the construction was, and the Leviathan, was that rebuilt also, or is that?
Well, the Leviathan is a replica, like the funeral car, and built from the ground up.
Mm-hmm.
It was scrapped along with its sister, the Jupiter, and when the Park Service finally rebuilt the 119 and the Jupiter for the Golden Spike at Promontory Summit,
Mm-hmm.
Luckily they kept the patterns, and when Dave decided, I want to build a steam locomotive,
Mm-hmm.
basically what it was, a heavy equipment operator, and he saw a couple other guys building steam locomotives. I want to build one too. So he talked with, got in contact to get the backing of Jack White, who was the curator of transportation of the Smithsonian Institute at the time.
Mm.
And through him, he was able to talk to the Park Service, and they actually let him have all the patterns for the Jupiter so he could make the sister Leviathan.
Mm-hmm.
Thing is, he could not take the patterns out of Utah, so he had to find a foundry there to get all the work done.
Because it belonged to
The Park Service.
Yeah. Okay.
And it took him, it was a process of 10 years. And he first debuted the locomotive in 2009 in Owasso, Michigan.
I know we've discussed this some time ago, but this is for benefit of people with bad memory like myself, and those of you out there who may haven't heard it before. But on the funeral train, how many cars would there have been though on the?
The train itself would have had about at least 6 to 8 cars. There were 2 cars that went constantly. The POTUS 1, which is actually what the funeral car was going to be. A car that Lincoln did not want. And then there was an officer's car behind it. And you had when they put the car together, like I said, they went by the art and they set it up the way it was described it would have been had it been used for what it was. And just one end of the car was set up with the casket. The plans for the casket were found. They were designed actually by the Bates Casket Company of Batesville, Indiana. But they had, because they couldn't get it to Washington in time, they had a builder in Washington make the coffin. They just sent them the dimensions and the casket handles that they had.
So it was made to order?
Well, basically, yes.
President Lincoln was a very tall man, especially for his day, right? In his
Yes.
day?
Yeah, he was 6'4".
In his day, that was a 7-footer just about, wasn't it? Like?
Yeah, and, he was the Will Chamberlain of the day.
He would have been slam dunking today, probably, whatever.
And the casket that you saw on there, a lot of people disputed, but the casket itself is 6'6".
Okay.
And though we had the bedroom still in there where he would have rested, and the sitting room, that is where Willie's body was transported on that end. And they had one guard for that.
Well, awful lot of love had to go into this project in addition to all the work and elbow grease and perspiration. And I know we talked before. We actually got to meet Shannon Brown. I did.
That is correct.
Somebody tipped off to who I was. I was trying to scare her to thinking, who's this goofy guy taking pictures? And he says, "Hello, Jack." So I wonder who turned me in.
I have no
Who
idea.
could that have been? But that's okay. It was great fun. I recognized her voice right away on the PA. So
Yeah.
anyway, was that the first time you met her with the train? Though was that?
No, I actually met her in last year.
Mhm.
Remember, I met her when I ran into her in Kentucky last year when we had the locomotive in Versailles at the Bluegrass
That's
Railway
right.
Museum.
Yeah, I remember that now.
And that's how I.
But it was still with the train, right? The funeral train.
Yeah. No, the funeral car was still being finished. It was still being worked. Remember, the funeral car was actually finished this year in April, the Wednesday.
That's right.
The Wednesday before the 150th anniversary in Springfield.
Nothing like cutting it close, huh?
Yeah, they finished it on Wednesday, transported it down on Thursday, had it set up by Friday.
Wow.
Fresh off the presses, for sure. Anyway, it's impossible to do words to give it justice. Now, will they be going out again next year?
Well, we will see. I know there have been a couple requests, so we'll just see from there.
But right now, it's in dry dock now, or mothballs or something. Right?
Yeah, it's in storage at the warehouse where it was built in Elgin, and the locomotive and tender, with the holidays coming up, they put it where it's been stored for the last 2 years, at the Age of Steam Roundhouse in Sugar Creek, Ohio. That is a roundhouse that was actually built 6 years ago by Jerry Jacobson, who owned the Ohio Central Railroad, and got bought out by the Genesee Wyoming Corporation. And he collected steam locomotives. At the time that it was being built, he had, I guess, 12 locomotives. More than half of them did operate. And he has since acquired more. That is why he told Dave Clokey that he might not be able to store his locomotive there because there'll be no room. And he's going to add 10 more stalls to his already 18-stall roundhouse.
That's interesting that someone just built a roundhouse because they were kind of a dying breed there, right?
Yeah, and they use basically the technology. Since it's in the heart of the Amish country, they use their technology in building.
In Indiana?
In Ohio.
Ohio, that's Ohio.
And the big Amish community there. And made out of brick and timber frame.
We had one as a kid, a 59th, and I want to say Damon. It was actually like a couple of blocks west of Damon. Pennsylvania Railroad had the one right over there. I remember the roundhouse around there. And there was, that's not, my dad was a railroad buff, And he used to point out stuff like that all the time. And anyway, but it's just, I find it's interesting if someone just built one. So anyway, anybody else? And we got anything more on Lincoln right now, or no? Okay, what do you got, Doug?
Well, looks like we're getting a new short line in Chicago.
Short line what?
It's going to be called the Cicero Central.
Yeah.
The only information we have so far is they're an Illinois registered corporation, and they got an FCC radio channel. Speculation, and though it's owned by the Watco, W-A-T-C-O company, which owns 44 other short lines, including the Wisconsin and Southern. So it's going to be interesting. Speculation is that CN is unloading what's left of the Chicago and Illinois Western line. Most of that railroad's out of service. Everything east of Pulaski's out of service. Most of the stuff doesn't even make it to Lawndale Avenue any longer. So there's the biggest customer on that line is just Copper's Chemicals, and that's it. So it looks like that's what they're getting, but we won't know until they file the papers.
But do they have a roundhouse?
No.
Well, tell them you get them when we can have
No,
them.
but the old Manufacturers Junction still has their roundhouse.
Who's that?
Manufacturers Junction.
Oh, yeah.
They used to serve Western Electric. The line has no customers, but it's owned by Omnitrax, and their roundhouse, and they're 2 stalls with the little turntable in front. You can see it from Ogden
Where's that
Avenue.
located? Ogden and...
Cicero.
Okay. Well, I know what you mean. Ron, what do you got?
Well,
What do you got for us?
I can give you some traction updates if you want those. So that this weekend, well, next weekend, the Halloween weekend this year, Illinois Railway Museum is not doing their Halloween train or setup that they had because of a shortage of equipment. However, this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, and actually this past weekend, Saturday and Sunday, and this coming weekend, the 24th, Saturday and Sunday, the train museum out in Elgin, which the name is just, what's the name of that place?
Fox River Valley.
Fox River, thank you. They have trains, they're calling their ghost story trains, Halloween trains, and they're running 3 trains a day out there. So if you want to take a train ride, the last one is like 7 o'clock at night, so you can get a nice twilight ride on an old trolley car. And that's in Fox Valley. And in East Troy, there's one more dinner train left on the 24th, Saturday night. So we have that going on. If anybody's interested, that's the East Troy Trolley Museum out in East Troy, Wisconsin. And I just saw posted on, it was in the Chicago Tribune, the Skokie Swift, a.k.a. Yellow Line, is still being repaired, but they're saying that repairs are getting close to being done, and while they're a little bit behind schedule, that should be reopening sometime in the next month or so. And that's a traction report for now.
We can take it to the bank, right?
Yes.
I had an experience this past week with the grandchildren and my wife and the daughter. Naperville, All Aboard Cafe, one little restaurant, and it's not original with this such. They have you order something and it comes on the train, and the little train delivers it to your spot on the counter. But something like that, I try to see through the eyes of the kids, because all these other rides and displays are there, and there, of course, Jack is 3.5 almost, and his brother's 15 months old, so he didn't go to it. But Jack is all eyes walking around and is so fascinated with all the memorabilia, the artwork, the photos, the old signs, and all the collection. The thing they have there is I really enjoyed it. And by the way, had a very good hamburger, so that didn't hurt either. But I just wanted to say something. I wanted to get somebody from there, but I never got back to me. So maybe we'll get them on yet. So
Yeah, sounds like the Choo Choo Hamburger in Des Plaines.
okay,
Same thing.
Okay, they got
They got Lionel O-Gauge. So
I know there are several like that. Anybody else know of any places like that?
2 Toots. There's one up in Downers Grove, and there's one in Barrington. And then you have, I don't know what the name of the one is. There's one on Madison Street in Oak Park, about 2 blocks west of Harlem Avenue. There's one with a train there also.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we used to be there. There was a good pizzeria down around
Junction
there.
Diner?
Could be Junction.
Yeah.
About
It's
seven-
an old bank.
Yeah, about 7400 West on Madison Street.
That's the
Yes.
one.
Yes.
Yeah, it's in an old bank.
West of Harlem would be River Forest, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's
Oak
River.
Park, River Forest.
Yeah,
Not
River
making a
Forest.
liar out of you.
Hey, I was
Scouts
close.
Honor. I know it was. I didn't mean
I was
either
close.
before. I wasn't being a smart aleck with the Ripley thing either, Brian. I apologize. I'm such a smart aleck, If I don't know trains too well, I got to know something. So anyway, what do we got now? Got to have
Okay, well, let's see.
and the news.
We got a few things going on at the Chicago Botanic Garden on the weekend of the 17th and 18th. They're going to have trains, tricks, and treats this weekend at the garden. And then on the 24th and 25th will be Garden of Good and Evil. And that's where they'll have Halloween trains set up and all running in the garden. And they like doing it at night. They'll be going until 9 p.m. on Saturday and 7:30 p.m. on Sunday. And then the garden's actually going to be, railroad guard to be closed after that. Take up all the buildings, take up all the trains, take up all the accessories, put them inside, wash them up, put them away, and start building the Winter Wonderland Express for the end of November.
Christmas?
For Christmas.
Christmas time.
So we don't have to talk about that now because we're talking about Halloween.
That's right.
And then we've got the Silver Creek and Stevenson Railroad, located in Freeport, Illinois. I guess that's near Rockford.
Yes.
And they run the Train of Terror. And it'll be running on it already ran this past weekend on the 10th. It'll be running on the 17th and 24th. And the trains will run, schedule, here it is. Terror train departs at 6 p.m., 7 p.m., 8 p.m., and 9 p.m. But they have a steam train which also departs. And they've got a Heisler, a little two-truck Heisler, light little engine. It competes with the Shea locomotive for logging. And they will depart 11, noon, 1, 2, 3, and 4 on the 17th and 18th.
17th, my daughter's birthday. Happy birthday, Jen.
And then we got a train running up at the Heston Steam Museum. And they start on they're going to do 3 weekends instead of 2, starting on the 17th and 18th, the 24th and 25th, and the 31st and November 1st. And there goes train, the Erie Express. And train fares are $5 for adults, $3 for kids, 12 and under, and trains run from noon until 5 p.m. And their Shea will be running.
And Heston is the home of the train that once ran at Kittyland at First Avenue and North Avenue in Maywood Park.
That's there now?
Yeah. If you want to know where the key, in fact, a weekend in September is called Chicago Weekend. They'll be running they run the Kittyland locomotives, and they also run the Brookfield Zoo trains.
Yes.
That weekend.
You have some affiliation with them too, don't you?
Yeah, I might be a member. Of course, I wasn't there much this year for some reason.
Well, you can't be 2 places at once, or can you?
Well, you try.
You try, yeah. Do you ever get feeling like the knight who hops on his horse and tries to ride off in all directions at once? The old cliche. Come on, nobody heard that before? Oh. Well, remember where you heard it first, folks,
Yeah.
on Chicago Junction. All you were listening.
Let's see. Okay, we already dissed the Illinois Railway Museum. Yeah, I could say that the lack of equipment, and they're saying, they're all being rebuilt, is the excuse they're using. But The Indiana Transportation Museum is running their harvest train. And then the Whitewater Valley, which is a little bit further south, is running their pumpkin liner. That's what they're calling it.
Yeah. What? Oh, pumpkin. I get it. This is the time of year, isn't it, for that? Pumpkins, and between now and Thanksgiving also. So, and I had this morning, I had a most delicious pumpkin slice with coffee at coffee time. So, Weber's Bakery on Archer Avenue. A little plug for them. They have the best stuff. Anyway, sorry we're so light.
Stop that. You just mentioned Weber, and we gained 2 pounds. You know that.
What? We got any?
That's like walking down Murray Street in Manhattan, right in the Italian district. You put 10 pounds on you, just walking down that street.
But do we have anybody can think of oftentimes a film about railroad or whatever subject is always good for discussion. Has anyone got? Before you mentioned someone, Randolph Scott over before. Didn't we?
The movie Canadian Pacific.
Yeah.
Had Randolph Scott in it, and I don't know who all the other people, but it was a fun movie to watch.
About what year would this be? The 50s or 40s or?
I believe 50s.
Was it color or black and white? Or?
Oh, the black and white.
Yeah.
Then right after that one, this was on TMC last week, and right after that came Murder on a Private Car. And that was fun to watch, especially towards the end when they're chasing the cars, the single private cars on runaway, and the couplers are wired with dynamite, so they can't use an engine to stop it, and the guys are throwing the switches, routing it through the rail yards, and they finally get an engine close enough, they all jump onto the engine, and the car goes off the trestle and blows up. And that's how the movie ends. That's it.
Oh, it has Charlie Ruggles in it.
Huh?
He plays a really weird businessman, like detective. But he has a fancy for one of the heroine's friend, one of the operators.
Hmm.
Yeah, see, right?
I don't let plot get in the way of watching.
It must have been older than the 50s.
Yeah, I think that was. I think it was 34.
More like it.
A lot of good steam engine shots in this movie.
Yeah, but it was going through the yard like. Remember, what was it? The Silver Streak, the original, where they kind of speeded up the film, showing the Zephyr going through the yards, snaking through real fast. That's the way they were doing it on that.
No, speaking of filmed locomotives and trains, The Adventures of Superman, the earlier couple of seasons, they had a steam engine they showed as more powerful than a locomotive. Do you remember?
Right, yes.
Was that any particular?
It was a GS3 steam locomotive with the single conical headlight.
And then they went to a passenger...
a diesel version.
Yeah.
The diesel version, still in the daylight paint scheme. But I remember seeing a show that actually the first... Do you know who the first sponsor was?
Kellogg's?
No. U.S. Treasury Department.
Oh, no. That was a special film. You're talking about Stamp Day for Superman.
Yeah.
Right? That was made... They made it for the Fed.
Yeah.
It's like 20 minutes long. It's all about... it's just...
All I know is I seen the opening and said, brought to you by the U.S. Department of Transportation.
Yeah, that was a special.
Brings you Superman.
You never saw it?
That was a special.
Well, I actually saw it. There was a AMC, where most of the hosts were over on AMC before they went to TMC.
That's right.
And they did a special, 1 hour special, called Trains Go to the Movies. And they did about using trains in different movies. They talked to Michael Crichton, Gene Wilder, Eva St. Marie, because they were discussing North by Northwest.
Mm-hmm.
But all of them, Eli Wallach, doing the scenes from The Good, Bad, the Ugly, where he had to lie. He was actually lying on the tracks waiting for that train to go over his handcuffs.
He had that sergeant. He tumbled
Yeah.
off the train, you know. It was-
But and that's where I saw that. They talked about it.
Speaking of Good and Bad, the Ugly, spaghetti westerns, the beginning of, especially, and later on, Once Upon a Time in the West,
It was just on.
was it again? That's one time you see Henry Fonda as a scary bad guy, really. You know, he was just,
Yeah. In fact, well, when I saw it 2 days ago, was the first time I actually watched the movie.
yeah.
We are being called for a station identification break.
Oh, we are.
Yes, we are.
Okay. Thanks for listening, folks. We'll be right back.
You are listening to Chicago Junction on Jack FM 89.7, WRHS FM Norwich, and the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on Monday, October the 19th, the year of our Lord, 2015. And this is Jack-O-Lantern FM 89.7, WRHS FM Norwich, Illinois.
It's Jack Ryan.
And now, friends, back to Chicago Junction and our panel.
It's Jack Ryan, not Jack O'Lantern. He must be an Irishman, too, though, huh? Oh, well, I was going to say this for off the air, but I guess the statute of limitations have run to me by now. I saw that movie when I was on the job in 1969 that we were just talking about, Once Upon a Time in the West. It was at the Oriental. We used to work on the quarters downtown. Sundays, it was so quiet down there until about 1 in the afternoon, so you could take it easy. And I saw that as a freebie, and that was that's a great picture. And it was kind of based around the railroad expanding, and it's one railroad.
Oh yeah, and you always had to have that gunslinger.
Yeah, they always right. You have to murder this Irishman or something, his whole family to get his land or something.
And then you have Jason Robards in it,
Right.
Charles Bronson.
And what was the lady's name? I can't think of oh, shoot. I'd know it if I heard it.
So would I.
But it was once again, it was made in probably Spain and Italy. A lot of that was shot over there. And a lot of those, that's why they're called spaghetti westerns. That's how Clint Eastwood got to be a star, going to Europe. And he was fired from Universal or whatever. The same day as Burt Reynolds. They were both leave the lot, you know. They told him his Adam's apple was too big, he'd never make it. So, how do we get on that? Was there any train pictures?
No.
No. Damn. So, okay, let's hear another good train movie. Oh, Hurricane Express.
Hurricane Express, 12-part serial.
Was it 1933 or somewhere around there?
Yep, 1933.
Mascot, even before it was Republic, John Wayne.
John Wayne, the airline pilot.
Yeah. I remember that.
And then you had
Emperor of the North.
one of the Great Depression era films.
Ernest Borgnine?
Ernest Borgnine, Lee Marvin, Keith Carradine, young Keith Carradine, played an obnoxious bum. I can see several of the character actors, and I can't remember their names. But yeah, it was.
I know there's always a lot of romanticizing about people riding the rails, and it's kind of dangerous out there, I understand.
Yeah, but they showed you how to do it right.
Who did?
Number one.
Oh, that, yeah, I see what you're saying. Now, where we have our coffee spot in the morning, like 62nd and Harlem, it's on the Summit side, not far from the rail. We see a lot of young kids, and they're coming from the rail. I mean, they're young, their 20s, and you just tell a guy everything was in his duffel bag on his back, bearded. That's obviously where they came from. So they're still out there. It wasn't just in the Depression era.
Oh, you ought to see it with the morning train when it leaves San Diego.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, either the container cars or stack cars coming out. once you get down by where the airport is towards Old Town, you'll see a lot of heads popping up.
Yeah.
Watching, going, oh yeah, it was the Immigrant Express.
I know my wife. She's from town, Central City in Muhlenberg County, Kentucky, and they were right very close to where the railroad came in and stopped. And according to popular lore, hobos would mark places where they know would be an easy handout, some kind of sign on a post or something. And she said it must have been true because they always came to her house, and her mother, they had a large family, but she never turned anybody away that was hungry. So, but you've had experience with real live hobos? I mean,
I've seen them in the yards,
yeah.
but it's more dangerous now.
Is it? I saw one of those cable channels had something about that. There was some very bad dudes out there.
Not like it was.
No, never is it?
That is true.
I'm telling you.
Well, how about the train?
Yep. Yeah, the train, the war. It's the one with Frank Sinatra. No, wrong train.
Wrong train. That's Von Ryan's Express.
That's it. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
No, John Frankenheimer's film, The Train.
Oh, with Burt Lancaster.
Burt Lancaster.
Oh yes, I know. Yeah, that's in France, isn't it? In World
That's
War II?
correct.
Yeah, that's a great picture. Yeah, he does some really great stunts in there too, and there's no dubbing, there's no cutting.
Oh, that's right. Trust me, that wreck was real.
Mm-hmm.
That wreck that they did, the engine went faster than it was supposed to, and actually wiped out 8 of the 13 cameras.
Hmm.
And there was one all of a sudden they forgot all about, and they had buried. And it's the one shot that ends up in the movie. Where the camera is where the wheel came to a stop, spinning up in the air. They said all I know is after the wreck cleared, and they still heard this whirling sound, it was the camera buried.
Yeah, that was a great picture. That's on every once in a while too on GCM, Turner Classic Movies. And you mentioned Von Ryan's Express, which was a little bit more whimsical probably in the whole setup.
Well, yeah, but sometimes a lot of them stories are based on fact.
Oh, sure. My dad had said a long time ago, fact is stranger than fiction. Because you wouldn't make up some of these things that actually happen.
And, yes, they kind of stretched it, but Unstoppable was based on a true happening. They just kind of speeded things up a bit.
Okay. Errol Flynn, Desperate Journey. They're in the RAF. They're shot down over Germany. They're masquerading as Germans. They get into a car to transport them to, what's his name is after them? Raymond Massey is the German officer who's after them. And what do they get on? But Hermann Goering's own private car that was being redone. And they're riding, and Sig Ruman, he was a station master somewhere. He stopped them, and he was so proud that he kicked them off the train. He says it in German to Raymond Massey. Yeah, I kicked him off the train. He went, Schweinhund, idiot, you He was supposed to capture them, but you remember that picture? Ronald Reagan, Errol Flynn, Ronald Reagan.
No,
Arthur Kennedy.
I remember seeing a few bits of it, but I
Alan Hale.
Thing.
Who else? So it was like a little microcosm. It was may have been made before we were even in the war officially. See, Jack Warner declared war very early against Germany in America, and a lot of Hollywood did. It was probably the right thing to do. But so Ronald Reagan was a wisecracking American. Errol Flynn I guess he was a Brit. And one of them was a Canadian from different parts of the Commonwealth of the Empire. And they get shot down. And I'm surprised they come back through Germany and they do all this commando raiding. Meanwhile, and at the end they had that's what it was. The Germans had a plane done up as a Spitfire, so they were going to fly it into right over London or something, and so of course they used that to destroy any aircraft on the way out or something. So it's worth taking in though. Desperate Journey.
Okay.
Highly recommended.
All right.
And you like Errol Flynn movies anyway, right?
Oh yeah. Well, who doesn't like Errol Flynn?
His favorite was Gentleman Jim. He said in his own, but
yeah, I've got a couple of his movies. Prince and the Pauper, and of course Robin Hood.
Say no more. No trains, but great picture. Best Technicolor. I think it was Warner Brothers' first Technicolor film. And what a score, music. Oh.
Okay, one that has a little bit of trains. Four's a Crowd. Earl Flynn. Four's a Crowd. Earl Flynn, Olivia de Havilland. And he plays a newspaper reporter that tries to make people look good. Try to influence people against them. You know, they might have a bad attitude or something like that with rich people, and he tries to get them to change their ways, but he puts good publicity about them.
Like a press agent or something?
Yeah, like a press agent. And this one millionaire had a garden layout in O-gauge, and he raced his trains. He had several of the good old Lionel Hudsons and stuff. And Earl Flynn got a hold of the new Streamliner, the M10,000, and raced it against this guy. And the only way to ensure he won, he greased the rails with butter. So the engine would slip and slide.
Speaking of large-scale railroads, how about John Goldfarb? Please come home.
Yes. Oh, that Sheik.
Yep.
Who was that? Peter Ustinov had almost like 1.5-inch scale running through his house.
Yeah.
Palace. Excuse me.
Yep.
I plead ignorance. I've never seen that one.
Oh yeah, Shirley MacLaine.
Yeah.
Richard Carena.
And that British guy always plays the butler. He plays the aide to Peter Ustinov.
Yeah.
Can't think of his name either.
I'm drawing a blank. He's a Brit?
Yeah, he
That knows that down.
he had a bit. He was a recurring character on Hogan's Heroes.
Recurring character. Oh, okay. But not Richard Dawson. He was
No.
regular. He would come back every once in a while. This with a little mustache, dark-haired mustache, and
Crittenden.
John Crittenden.
No. That
Colonel
was the
Crittenden.
Colonel Crittenden.
Carol. Okay, that's it.
That was the character's name.
Oh, okay. I don't know who that was, but we're gonna. That's our assignment for next time. We got to find out
Okay.
these things. Well, that's for you next time, folks. Make sure you listen now. And okay, another train. I just thought of one. Oh, of course, mentioned it before, from the '70s, Cassandra Crossing. Burt Lancaster.
Richard Harris.
Who else? That was a pretty good. One of those big cast ones. That was.
Yeah, Richard Harris and forgetting who the female lead was. Of course, I always want to say Sophia Loren, but it wasn't, I don't believe.
Might have been. But this was, I think this was made in Europe, like an international film anyway,
Yeah.
wasn't it? Yeah. And it's kind of like, shows the military kind of a bad light. Popular topic at the time.
Military was always in a bad light.
Oh, no. Oh, no. The 40s, the 50s. They went in the 40s. Hey, military was it, right? The 50s, it was like, in all these sci-fi movies, it was the scientists and the Army and the Navy saved the world from whatever the creatures were.
Yeah. No, what was it? Keith Toby? Toby Keith.
Toby Keith.
Toby Keith. Yeah, he was always the fighter. The Thing.
Kenneth Toby?
Yeah, no, Toby Keith is the country star now.
Kenneth Toby.
Kenneth Toby.
Okay.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's what it is. Whirlybirds?
Well, I know him from The Thing.
Beast from 20,000 Fathoms. Oh, yeah, that's it. King, right.
Beast from 20,000 Phantoms.
There was a series
there was
called
several.
Whirlybirds in the 50s. You remember that?
Yep.
He was in that, too, I think. Chuck and P.T.
Mm-hmm.
Remember Whirlybirds? Anybody raise your hand? Remember, no Whirlybirds? Yes.
Yes.
It's unanimous, folks. It's probably on channel 23 right now.
And it was a real disappointment when they had a program on called Cannonball, and it was
Yeah.
about trucks.
Yeah. Remember that?
But how about the movie Scalp Lock, which the TV version was Iron Horse?
Yes.
Iron Horse.
Rory Calhoun.
Oh, was that him?
Yeah, he wins a railroad in a poker game. But that's
No, wait a
the
minute.
movie. The movie version was Scalp Block.
Yeah, the movie was Scalp Block, and that's where you had even Richard Dewin had a small part
Wait a
in
minute. What,
making the business card.
what was the one with TV series about a railroad like that with Dale Robertson was doing like a road show, Clark Gable in it? He was a, I don't know, I thought he was a railroad executive in that. Do you remember that one? 'Cause is that the one?
It
or no?
wasn't Rory Calhoun. It was Dale Robertson.
It was Dale Robertson.
Yeah, that's the one.
Okay, Iron Horse, yeah.
Iron Horse.
Iron Horse.
He was okay, he couldn't help it. He looked and sounded like him.
So
Clark Gable, not the horse.
Now, there's the usual movies, Kansas Pacific, Union Pacific, and the one I couldn't think of, which features Lincoln at the end of it protecting the Rock Island, but I can't think of the name of the movie.
I got the Tall Man.
Because they always end the movie with him with the, by the river, then it fades away and shows a Rock Island train going by, because he defended the Rock Island
Right.
at the Mississippi crossing. But I can't think of the name of the movie unless it was called Rock Island.
It might have been.
Classic Silent, the Iron Horse.
That one.
I think it was John Ford also, wasn't it? John Ford.
Yes, it was.
He dated back to there.
That was a John Ford classic.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we got the General.
Yeah.
Oh, now we can talk for the rest of the show. General, it was incredible. Buster Keaton read the book in one night, and he said, "We got to do this." And it was hard to think that was basically considered to be a slapstick comedian, physical, was doing a picture like this. It is amazing if you watch it. We saw it. Our family, oh Lord, my wife and I weren't married that long. We went all the way to the Wilmette. They had a fest, and that was one of it. We'd seen clips of it, a much shortened version on. Anyone remember a series called Silence Please? Late 50s, early 60s. It was only a half hour, but it would like go into some film and background and show you a lot of it. Well, anyway, at least it was enough to whet your appetite. But if anyone hasn't seen The General, I mean, it's so incredible. How about the battle scenes that are in that?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
In fact, the same railroad where he filmed that is where Emperor of the North was filmed.
Was it? Was that in
Yeah.
Northwest somewhere? Or?
Yeah, in California.
Was it?
Eureka Western. At a Cottage Grove.
Now, in The General, they actually sacrificed the locomotive and then to the river.
Yep. I think they sacrificed a couple.
And well, one on film for sure, where the one general says, no, it's not, the bridge was burning, or the trestle, right? And he says, no, across you go. And it went down into the river. It really did, because you could see all the steam and the...
And at that time, they were scrapping all them metal type, those locomotives.
Yeah, then and later, I remember as a kid, and I would say I was 10, 12 years old, around there, we'd go down to see my grandmother, my dad's mother, and we were at 65th and Damon, and they were in Canaryville around 45th Place in Wallace, and we'd have to go through the one, underneath the one tracks over there to the stockyards, and all these old steam engines were being brought in. It was, scrap. Like probably hundreds of them you could see in a short period of time being hauled in there. So,
well, then you got then of course the modern version, the Great Locomotive Chase with Fess Parker.
Yeah.
John
Lupton is in that. What's his name? The guy who was he did a lot of Disney stuff. Jeff York, he's in that. He does a pretty good job in it. But that was a true story that was based on.
Yeah, based on a true story that
Anderson's
actually
Raiders,
happened.
Andrews or Anderson?
Andrews.
Andrews.
And that also gave birth all those men, except for Andrews, was given the first Congressional Medal of Honor.
Mm-hmm. And he wasn't even military, was he?
No, that's why he did not get the Congressional Medal of Honor.
He executed, didn't he?
He was, he was
Spy.
Secret Service.
Was he? Oh, okay.
But yes, they and the officers that were killed, the men that were killed, were branded as spies.
They were, because they weren't in uniform. Or now he was for those who aren't familiar, the story is these Union operatives. They were military, weren't they? Soldiers. they go down south, and they're going to take this train and drive west and just do all disruption they can, disrupt the communications, destroy any railroad they can. Isn't that correct?
That is correct.
And the one in
The conductor of the passenger train gave chase, and eventually they caught up.
Oh, the general is the one they're chasing in
Texas.
Right.
And those two locomotives still exist.
Right. The general is in Tennessee.
Not Tennessee.
Yeah. Oh, Georgia. That's right. You're right, Georgia. Big Shanty Museum was called originally, but I mean, we talked to those people down there, didn't we?
Right, and the Texas was in Atlanta, and now it's being moved
To
a new area. They're tearing down where it was,
Mhm.
and they're moving it to a new area.
But that's a real. Once again, it's an example of truth being stranger than fiction. I didn't know it was the conductor who was chasing.
Yeah.
How the West Was Won has a great railroad scene in it.
Yes, it does.
You ever see it? How the West Was Won. It's about 2.5, 3 hours long.
Oh, I did
Yeah,
see
that was made by what? Three different directors.
Cinerama or something.
Yeah,
was it one?
John Ford was one of the directors.
Because it was episodic, correct? A lot of episodes on the.
Yeah,
stories.
during the life of this one family.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Now comes the question. Did you get a chance to see Snowpiercer?
I have not seen Snowpiercer. I was not around so I could see Snowpiercer.
All right, we'll have to hold on that one then for a while.
Okay, what is Snowpiercer? Can you fill me in?
It's a train set in the future after global warming goes wrong and the place is a big ice cube. And these people live on the train as it plows through the snow and ice.
You did mention that before, yeah.
Yes.
Yes, he did.
Boy,
But considering I was doing a couple other things,
Snowpiercer.
That does bring up a good question, though. What movies with railroads of the last, I would say, in the 90s and 2000s came out?
What's that?
Was there any movies featuring railroads in the 1990s and 2000s? I really can't think of any.
I know in the 80s we had Terror Train.
Yep. Well, there's always the Murder on the Orient Express, the 2 or 3 versions.
Yeah.
What was that Christmas movie that Disney had?
Oh,
the
yeah.
train?
Based on the 1225.
Oh, you're talking Polar Express.
Polar Express, yeah.
Yeah.
That wasn't Disney, though.
Wasn't it? I thought
Nah.
it was. Okay.
That one was not Disney.
How about some great on-screen crashes? Railroad crashes. Invisible Man, there was one when he was. I never understood as a kid why he was invisible. He had to go I guess it was attacking his mind too. Isn't that correct?
Yeah.
So he the train tumbles off the into the valley below and.
Well, let's see. Good on-screen wrecks. Oh, Hollywood had some great wrecks. Well, the one in the train. The remake of Silver Streak.
Oh, yeah. Breaking through Union Station.
Buster Keaton had 1 week where he's building a house from by numbers, and it was on the wrong lot. They had to move it, and he stops, and the train went right through and destroyed the house. Is what it put. Did you ever see that? It's a short from like 1922, I think it is.
All right. Let's see. What else would be a good train wreck?
I recall reading in one of the old railroad magazines that they used to crash the old steam engines together at times.
Yeah. There was a.
There was an article in one
Yeah.
that said a lot of people got hurt because they did not expect the boiler to explode, and I guess it did.
Yeah. They used to do it at fairgrounds,
Yeah.
like they did with cars crashing into each other, almost like the demolition derby. They'd run two steam trains into each other.
I've seen film of that, but I know it wasn't from a particular picture. You know what I'm saying? They probably used over and over again.
Well, no, I mean that was.
These weren't for movies. This was just to get rid of old steam engines. That was
Yeah.
a novelty. They'd set them up probably like a mile apart, turn them on, So did they crash in a particular spot?
Yeah, it was, the thrills, the thrill seekers.
Yeah. Kind of like a car pull or a tractor pull or one of those.
Yeah, but I remember the article I was reading. They said a lot of people got hurt because
Yeah, there was on this
boiler.
one they were talking about
yeah,
the boiler really
Spectators?
let loose.
yeah.
How about streetcar movies?
I'll toss this one out at you. What 50s TV show started off where you saw a cable car from San Francisco? And I just gave you half the title of the TV show.
The lineup?
No.
No.
San Francisco Beat.
No, it's the same show. The San Francisco Beat was the name in
Rerun.
syndication.
Okay.
Yeah. The lineup. Remember the lineup?
Okay.
Tom Warner Anderson, Tom Tully. I thought it was a very realistic cop show when I look at it now. They were driving around their 1950 black Ford around San Francisco, obviously.
And
And
they call it San Francisco Beat.
it was probably CBS's. That was the rerun in syndication, but it was like CBS's answer to Dragnet. But I understand this has been on the radio also.
Yeah, with traction shows, you had the Blues Brothers, that they were supposedly in the hotel over there on Van Buren Street. You saw the L going back and forth. And even though at that time the L was only going one way, but you saw the L going both ways.
There's a movie, The Fury, too, that they did like that. There's supposed to be in some room, like a flop house that's up on Van Buren. Fury with Kirk Douglas.
Yeah, and then The Fugitive, the
Yeah.
movie The Fugitive.
How about that streetcar movie, silent, black and white, where the guy's it's a horse car line, and he's got to do the franchise run while a guy's trying to buy out the company.
I recall it, but I don't know the name of it.
It was just on, and I can't remember the name of it.
There was a lot of things with Harold Lloyd. He used to use streetcars a lot, where you see him hanging from the pole and just going around circles in the train. The pole's going completely around the train, and he's hanging on for dear life.
I remember
like
a
that.
couple with Laurel and Hardy.
Yeah, there was one episode for the Three Stooges where they're firemen, and they have the hose, and they lay the hose across the street. And the streetcar goes over several times, but if you watch it closely, to avoid any kind of lawsuit or any kind of name, you do not see the name Los Angeles, because it was a Los Angeles streetcar, and they filmed it so you do not see the name of the streetcar on there. But it was Los Angeles.
Funny you mentioned Harold Lloyd. My older sister Joanne, when she was in college, she had some summer jobs. 1 year I was with the Shrine Hospitals, and Harold Lloyd was the head Shrine at the time. She got to meet him when he came through the office. Of course, I said, "Who's that?" I didn't.
Yeah.
He really didn't see much of his stuff at the time. And he was the one guy he could walk down Broadway and not be recognized without his glasses, like Clark Kent. You know that, Doug?
Well, now thinking of like some of the train movies that I forgot from, they were blacking out the railroad names.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden you see a tender, you know it says Southern Pacific, but no, they got this nice black stripe on there, just like they're doing with T-shirts now.
There's one TV show that gets me every time I see it, because after I see it, I want to take a train ride and eat on the diner. And that's the I Love Lucy episode where she keeps pulling the emergency brake, and the merchants come back full of food.
How about Ralph and Ed? They get in to go to the convention for the honeymooners. They're handcuffed together and all that. Turns out they're on the wrong train. They left the wives behind or something. There's a train one for you.
Yeah. Hey, going back to your Superman episode, you mentioned the steam engine in some episodes and the diesel in the other.
Mhm.
If I'm correct, the black and white showed the steam engine.
Right.
The color is when they brought in the diesel.
When the fourth or fifth season or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And it's obviously a passenger one because they all go by. It looks like
Yeah.
the silver.
Oh, trust me, the steam was passenger too.
Oh yeah.
That train.
I didn't
No,
know.
that train was known as in the U.S. They called it the most beautiful train in the world, with the color scheme.
What the one thing that amazes me about steam engines, and this will take you back to Union, Illinois, and then you go into the one barn where the steam engines are. There's one in particular, I don't know which one it is, but it has probably the 5 foot or 6 foot wheelbase on the thing. And just standing there, just just for the heck of it and watching everybody come past saying, wow, because they can't believe the wheels were that big.
Mm-hmm.
And just to try to imagine that thing going at speed down the line.
Yep.
And then there's the fantasy trains, such as Time Express, when there was a time machine. You get on the train and go back to the past. Then there was in the movies Union Pax out of Boston in the Zero Population movie. And Chicago and Pacific, which was in, I think, the Giant Ant movie. They showed the Santa Fe Yard, but the boxcar they broke into said Chicago and Pacific on it.
That is, yes, it did. Yes, it did.
There was a brief
them.
Them, yeah.
Them. Yeah. There was a Peter Graves in that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
no, James Whitmore, James Arness.
Oh, Jim and Ness. Okay.
A
lot of aunts, but no uncles.
And I want to say not Edmund Gwynn.
He made.
He did a couple of sci-fi movies, being a professor.
He's in Creature from Black Lagoon and Edmund Gwynn. Yeah.
And well,
anyway, the other
one quick one for you.
What?
While they never showed a train on on any episode, well, as far as I know, but always in the beginning of the episode, cartoon, Dudley Do-Right, and the bad guy tying the girls to the track. You never saw the train, though.
Snidely Whiplash.
Yes.
Snidely.
And, of course, Petticoat Junction.
There we go. That was a real train.
Does anyone recall, was it Amazing Stories, the brief series that Steven Spielberg had on NBC?
Oh, yeah, it was on for several years. But the first story he ever did was called Ghost Train.
Yeah, I was going to say, I remember that. They stop and people are looking, this train is looking at the modern conveniences, and people are looking at the train. And the trouble with those was, I guess he signed on and he was getting big bucks for every episode. I remember. So anyway, and speaking of episodes, but we're about at the end of the line today, and I'm sorry I'm stumbling all over myself. I got something in the way of my eye teeth and I can't see. So we're about at the end, gang. I just want to say, on behalf of Ron Smolin, Mr. Brian Valou, our announcer otherwise, and panel member, Doug Keniuk, and our members who aren't here today, and myself, Jack Ryan, and our engineer, and I don't mean to trade well with engineer, John DeVita. Remember, happy rails to you, folks. Until the next time.
All aboard! Next stop, Chicago Junction.
Join us again next time for when we take our Railroad of the Imagination on our continuing journey through the wonderful world of trains. Chicago Junction is a production of the Windy City Hometown Radio Network and can be heard over the station as well as WindyCityHometown.com, where recordings of all our shows may be heard. Once again, all aboard! This is your announcer, Brian Valou, saying thank you for listening and hoping you have a very happy and safe Halloween. Oh yeah, the conductor's portrayed by Charlie Johnson, a struggling young officer who's in need of work and still looking.
You have been listening to Chicago Junction on Jack FM 89.7, WRHS FM Norwich, and the Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network from the John DeVita Broadcast Center on Monday, October the 19th, the year 2015. Chicago Junction was produced by Jack Ryan, directed by John DeVita, and our special thanks to radio station manager Kevin Zeflik of WRHS-FM Norwich, and the executive producer of Windy City Hometown Entertainment Network, Mr. John Shikanda. This broadcast was pre-recorded on Thursday, October the 15th, the year 2015. Until next time, please be safe and thanks for listening. And this is Jack-O-Lantern FM, 89.7 WRHS FM, Norridge, Illinois. Have a great day, everyone, and thanks for listening.